V Hill, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of Joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V Hill.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. The sports world is a-buzzing, and the greatest soap opera on earth, the NFL, is leaving us no shortage of stories to get through, and there's no one better to go through those with me than NFL insider and friend of the show, James Palmer. James, how you doing today?
I'm good, buddy. I like that intro. I'm kind of like, wow, what are we going to dive into here? There's so many different things. I mean, obviously we'll knock out the Broncos, but there's a lot to cover here in this league.
Well, listen,
right
I'm
now.
actually going to put the Broncos slightly on the back burner here because, as you said, there's so many great things and storylines to dig into the NFL. So I'm going to kind of rapid fire throw a few things at you. I just want you to give me your thoughts, your insights, any information you may have that you can share with our listeners. First one's going to be opinion based, and it has to do with the unique play that we saw in the Chiefs 49ers game with the fake run out of bounds. We've seen the fake slide from Kenny Pickett, which I'll raise my hand first and say, I thought that was pretty cool when it happened, when I watched it live. Some people were up in arms about it. But we had a fake run out of bounds that resulted in, I believe, the longest run of Patrick Mahomes' immaculate career thus far of 33 yards.
Yep.
For some reason, for me, though, I felt differently about this one than I did about Kenny Pickett's fake slide in college. When I saw that, my first thought was, you know what? As sacrilegious as it might sound, it might be time to unprotect the QB just a little bit. Because I think defenses in the NFL already have such an uphill battle with the way the rules are structured and the way that offenses are set up. And if I'm the Las Vegas Raiders organization, I am strongly feeling the urge to tell one of my defensive players, hey, if you get a shot at Patrick Mahomes on the sideline after something like that, take it. We'll take the penalty. We'll take the fine. What did you think of that play when it happened?
First off, who is the Las Vegas Raiders head coach?
Yeah, Antonio Pierce.
What position did he play?
He was a defensive player, right? Was he a linebacker?
A linebacker.
Yeah.
Did he play with a lot of intensity?
I think so, yeah.
What you said definitely is going on in Las Vegas right now. And I'll tell you this, in Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes is well aware of it. And Mahomes will be very well aware that this is something that he pulled off. Mm-hmm. He took advantage of, and this isn't any slight to Patrick Mahomes. He took advantage of the situation quarterbacks are in. I think every athlete should take advantage of every minuscule advantage that they can get, right? And he knew. Listen, the guy pump faked twice after he crossed the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
He's doing everything he can to gain the slightest bit of an advantage. I will say this also, pretty terrible angle by the defensive player. I forget who it was. It's off the top of my head, I don't remember. Not a great angle. But also what he's looking like to do is, I can't let him get any further downfield. He's going to go out of bounds here, so I'll go a yard deeper, and he's going to go out of bounds. And Mahomes has just unbelievable body control. Mm-hmm. He has an awareness on the field. I don't know if a lot of people know this. I've talked to his trainer about this, Bobby, and he knows every defensive player, how fast they are, the type of way he can get around that player, whether it's around him, through him. He knows literally, no lie, he knows the numbers on the defense. When he starts running, he knows who he's faster than or not. He's done the research. Mm-hmm. That's how he runs as a quarterback. It's very scientific, honestly, and he used that to his advantage on the corner. Now, Pat's extremely intelligent football IQ. He knows that this is now a target that he put on himself. Yeah. But I also know that's the way the Chiefs are playing this season. Like, anything we can do to win a game, because that's where they're at right now. And he went and pulled it out. Now, here's the thing. I've talked to a lot of defensive players that have hit him in his career. It's like hitting rock, man. I know he's got the dad bod. I know I've seen him. It's a weird sentence to say. I've seen him topless a lot. I've worked that team, and I've worked their locker room a lot. It is a dad bod. He is as strong as it gets, man. You saw it a couple plays later when he levels a player in the end zone when he runs it in himself.
I was just going to say, yeah, James, as someone who's seen a lot of guys with their shirt off, as someone who's seen a lot of guys with their shirt off like you have, I don't have to tell you that the defender for the 49ers, who he leveled on the goal line into that end zone, looks like his body fat percentage might be 1/5 of whatever Patrick Mahomes is working with. And if you just looking at it in pads, you thought it was the other way around. It was pretty impressive.
That's strong. So I think he knows this is probably coming. I would expect it to be coming, honestly, on him. And I would expect the Raiders, honestly, to not care if there's a flag. Seriously, I don't think they care that it gets flagged.
I
think there has to be a mindset, right? This is the face, real quick. This is the face of the face of the franchise, face of the league. That the rest of the league's going. They saw the play, and we can't let quarterbacks get another advantage. We don't care if we get.
Outside of maybe the Detroit Lions, I can't think of a team more suited to have that mentality against Patrick Mahomes after what happened than the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, it's literally the perfect matchup, and
it really is
for it all week. I promise you. We also got
relax. Okay.
When it comes to quarterbacks, though, we also got the re-debut of a familiar face here in Broncos country, which was Russell Wilson's debut as a Pittsburgh Steeler. And I got to be honest, in more ways than one, on the field and off the field, it looked like a little bit of a reinvigorated, reinvented Russell Wilson. I think he kind of had us all going there in the first quarter. He completed his first pass for like 15 yards. Then he went 1 for 7 for 4 yards after that. And we're like, oh, here we go again. There's Russell Wilson. But they came back from, I think they were down 15-6, and they rattled off 30-something unanswered points. And they handled the Jets, which the Jets are looking more like a team that started out high and is kind of really crashing back down to earth. I think their only 2 wins have come against Will Levis and Jacoby Brissett.
Yes.
And 2 teams that are also in disarray. But what did you make of Russell Wilson's debut as a Steeler, and how might it impact the decisions that Mike Tomlin and that organization make going forward?
You used a couple of, I think, accurate adjectives to describe Russ. I'll add one. I think it was a humbled Russell Wilson.
Yes.
I think it was a Russell Wilson that is, it did not go well at the end of Seattle, did not go well during my stint with 2 different offensive coordinators and offensive minds at the head coaching position in Denver. And now I'm ready to eat some crow, some humble pie, and go, Arthur Smith, what do you need me to do? That's what it looked like to me. It oftentimes seemed here in Denver, what did we hear so much? Like his 5-year plan, his 7-year plan. It was, I'm playing tonight, and that's it. And that's the way Russ looked in that game. I'm going to put it all on the line. I don't mind if I get hit. I'm going to play, exactly the style of play that Arthur Smith wants me to play. I think we all were bamboozled a little bit by the performance. If we really took a deep dive at it, watch the film again. I don't want to sound like I'm like a scout, but I watched the game again. He didn't throw a single ball in the middle of the field.
Nope.
Literally 0. Emphatically, that's a 0. He can't throw the ball in the middle of the field.
Nope.
The George Pickens catch on the sideline where he's getting the PI was underthrown and an unbelievable catch.
Yes.
Another ball that Pickens caught for a touchdown was an underthrown ball that he picked off the helmet of.
Bounced off the defender.
There's that one that goes off the defender's helmet and like shoulder.
Yeah.
And then there's the touchdown catch that's underthrown again, and Pickens makes another grab and pulls it back in. These weren't great balls. He was more aggressive than Justin Fields has been. I think Justin Fields played with the mentality of, I don't want to lose the job.
Yeah.
Russ went out there going, I have to win the job. So he definitely went downfield. He definitely still throws a decent deep ball, but these balls were underthrown. He completed like 53% of his passes. I think the Jets were down about 5 guys in their secondary by the end of the game. I hope this doesn't give the Steelers a false sense of what's to come, because I don't think all of these bounces are going to go their way in every game Russell Wilson starts. What I do give credit to Mike Tomlin is not listening to everybody in the building, because I know plenty of people in that building that were all about Justin Fields and don't think you should make a switch. I think it was actually kind of smart to make the switch before you play anybody in the division. You get an opportunity to see if your offense can get better. You know what it's like with Justin Fields. You also know how good of a, let's just say, how good of a guy Justin Fields is.
Yeah.
He'll come right back into the starting job, and everybody will welcome back into open arms if this doesn't work with Russell Wilson. I think you got a chance to see. You're going to get a chance in a couple of games to see if the offense will be better. And if you don't have a franchise quarterback, why not see what you have out of both of your guys? I think Mike Tomlin is an outstanding coach. Somehow they're a team that doesn't have a franchise quarterback, has the ability to play around with the quarterback position in the middle of a season and be 5-2. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's almost become the expectation there that they really embody. And I know there's been a faction of people here in Broncos country who have felt that, because the Broncos haven't had a franchise quarterback since Peyton Manning walked out the door. And there have been people who have here in town who have kind of embodied the mentality of, hey, if you roster build and you build the right team and have the right culture around it, it puts less importance and less need to have that elevator. I disagree with that personally, because I think if you don't have above average to elite level quarterback play, your chances of winning a Super Bowl are very up in the air. But the Steelers are one of the teams in the NFL that are providing hope to that other side of the coin in that they can go 10-7 with a combination of Duck Hodges and Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph and, cycling through these guys because they're just so well built and well coached around it.
What do you think Broncos country would think if that was the case? Because there are Steelers fans out there. I mean, it's one of the big. These are two teams. That's a great comp because these are two teams that have two of the larger fan bases in football, right?
Yep.
Two national brands. There are plenty of Steelers fans that are like, "When is Mike Tomlin going to get us over the hump?"
Yeah.
Like, I think we've had enough. Which is an insane sentence.
It's amazing.
But there are people that say, "I think we've had enough of Mike Tomlin," which I'm like,
yeah.
This guy's like one of the best coaches in football. He's maybe one of the best coaches in professional sports. And so. What do you think Broncos country would do with it's a repeated ability to have a winning record every single year? He's never had a losing record in his entire career, which is insane. But they haven't gotten to that next level except the time that they had Roethlisberger, which is a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Sure.
Is that acceptable? Is that fine for a decade of that? Or would you rather have, a team searching like Denver's been searching since Peyton Manning retired?
I think that this town and this city has been so fortunate to experience the championships that they've experienced, and the Broncos have had 3 of them, and they've been to several, that I think they would grow weary the way that some of those Steelers fans are.
And I don't think it's the majority, right? You don't think it's the majority in Pittsburgh?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is either. It's there, but a vocal minority can be powerful, and I think that that's maybe where we're at. And I think the Broncos kind of experienced a little bit of that when John Fox was here, because when John Fox came in at the start of the they were winning. They won the AFC West 4 straight years. They had incredible playoff success, but they never won the big one. They went to it and they lost. And it was like, okay, we have this coach and this team that's clearly very good, but something's missing. We can't get it over the top. They bring in Gary Kubiak, and next thing you know, it's Super Bowl 50. Yeah. And Phil Jackson took over some decently successful teams as a basketball coach, but they needed somebody to get him over the edge. I think it's a dangerous gamble, and I think you really have to vet out your options before you do that, because you're not just letting Nathaniel Hackett walk out the door or something like that. You have a solid foundation. So we'll see. I certainly don't think that the Steelers should or have any, inclination to do anything like that. And, but I will say that at some point they have to figure something out, and I think that comes at the quarterback position.
Totally. I find this fascinating too, because they're 5-2 right now with playing both of these guys, and both of these guys, let's be entirely honest, nobody else in the NFL wanted either one of them.
No, they got 2 household names at quarterback position in the last 5-6 years for like a combined $2.5 million.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane bargain bin shopping at the quarterback position. And do you think that there will be genuine intrigue or interest in trying to move one of these guys at the trade deadline, which is coming up before we know it?
No, I don't think so. Because I think, like I mentioned, this is like kind of their little hack that they have right now, a little life hack here that Mike Tomlin has. I don't think they care. And I was told this before the season started, like they had the mentality that both will probably play this year. That's the mentality they had during training camp, whether it's because of, let's be honest, like injury, play dictating things, just situation. They thought of everything. Now, if you don't have one, which they don't, you might as well have 2. Like, ride Russ for a couple of weeks. And if it doesn't turn into what Mike Tomlin's looking at, he's just trying to see, we're in a Steven spot. We can probably make the playoffs again. Let's see if this offense can go to another level. Because, I mean, like Fields was producing. He was. But he wasn't, like, producing the way that they think maybe the offense can go to. Let's see. And then you get a chance to look at both of them and the way both of them play and the age of Russ and the offensive line issues that they've had. Somebody might go down injury-wise. So I think they hang on to both of them. And I don't think anybody wants either one either, which is the weird part about it.
Yeah, there's been a pretty significant amount of injuries around the NFL through the first 7-8 weeks or so, but it hasn't come as dramatically at the quarterback position as we've seen in previous years. Speaking of the receiver position, we saw a couple big ones go down. Chris Godwin, obviously, I think it was a dislocated ankle last night, just brutal. And the video the video that came out during the broadcast and after the game of Godwin sitting on the cart, in clear pain, and yet on his face talking to the trainers, he just shakes his head and he said, "Back to work, just back to work," and just couldn't happen.
I know Chris
to a guy,
is a great person, and
couldn't happen to a better guy. Yeah. And just really unfortunate there. And obviously the Buccaneers are fortunate that they have kind of an embarrassment of riches at the wide receiver position when you look at Mike Edwards and
Mike
Chris
Evans
Godwin.
went down too. I mean, that's the issue that they're in. I mean, this hamstring is going to be lengthy, to my understanding, for Mike Evans. So they're in a bit of a tough spot there. I mean, they were rolling a minute, but yeah, Godwin. I mean, he came into this game leading the NFL in catches, 3rd in yards, number 1 in yak. There's a lot of coaches I've talked around the league that think over the last 5-7 years he's been the best blocking tight end in all of football. This is a massive loss. And now I mentioned, Mike Evans going down. You see a different Baker Mayfield when Mike Evans isn't on the field. So, I mean, the Bucs are now a completely different team than what, Denver faced or what other teams have faced them earlier in the year. This is, there's a lot of receivers going down, which is why, for a variety of reasons, it's one of the reasons, but variety of reasons, this is like the hot number, the hot position for names to be moved during the trade deadline.
Do you think that a team that might be interested in doing some of those moves could be the 49ers, who obviously just saw Brandon Ayuk go down with a season-ending ACL injury? That is a team that, based on just short-term memory here, has had no shortage of injury issues. It feels like every season they come through a grind where they're down. Part of it is because they just have so many household names and star players on both sides of the ball. But it just feels like they get to a point midway or late in the season where they are grinding through it without 4, 5, 6 of those guys spread across both sides of the ball. How big is the Brandon Ayuk injury to the 49ers?
It's big in the immediate. I don't know if it's as big for the duration of the season. Debo having pneumonia, which is wild.
Fluid in his lungs?
It was brutal. I mean, I feel bad because, like, during the game, Tom Brady kept going like, yeah, you're down, now you're down Ayuk, and Debo doesn't feel well. And I'm like, well, he's kind of taking jabs. I feel like Tom's taking jabs at Debo. And now he's got pneumonia. But I don't want to downplay pneumonia, but if he misses a game, maybe 2, but I would say probably a game. The plan is they have a game and then a bye. And then you might have Christian McCaffrey back in the beginning part of November, to my understanding. Jennings could be coming back. Like, I don't know if they go seeking big time. Now they get Ricky Pearsall. They've been doing all of this without their first-round pick at the wide receiver spot. Now he returns. So I don't know if they're one of the teams that's really searching. John Lynch is one that's always been aggressive because the Super Bowl window is probably, let me snag it real quick, about that thick right now. It's not wide open, that window. You're not getting a whole lot of circulation through that window in San Francisco right now. But I would think John is always going to look. If it gives you any idea, they were willing to part with Ayuk before the season, right?
Yeah.
So they probably felt comfortable that they'd be fine, and needed some picks. So I don't see them being one of the ones that actually goes out there and looks at receivers, to be honest.
And I will say, too, on that note, they were willing to part with Ayuk before the season. And Ayuk, to his now, in hindsight, incredible credit, he held out, got his deal, got his money. And that is why I think we as fans sometimes, and spectators, I think we sometimes lose sight of the business aspect and the long-term ramifications that some of this can have on players who
millions of dollars he could have lost.
At every turn, the teams in the NFL will not have their backs if it comes down to a fiscal decision. And Brandon Ayuk did his thing, stood his ground, and I think he is now waking up this morning incredibly thankful that he did that and was able to set that up with his family.
Yeah.
Another team that was bit pretty hard at the injury bug would be the Cleveland Browns, who we saw Deshaun Watson go down, and a lot of the discourse that came out of that. That team was already in chaos leading into that prior to the injury.
Yeah.
And the Browns are in such salary cap hell with the Deshaun Watson contract and all of that. How does this Deshaun Watson injury and what they're going to have to do with DTR and Jameis Winston, how does that impact the trajectory of the team going forward? Are they potentially a better team without Deshaun Watson out there?
I don't know if they think that, because they would have made a move at quarterback. Right. I mean, I've talked to enough people in that building that they didn't think Jameis Winston coming in for Deshaun Watson was actually going to make the offense better. They didn't think that. But at the time, also, you could say they were financially tied to him because you said the implications, whether he's played or not. You might as well play the guy that you're paying, $91 million guaranteed, I think not including this season. That's what's left on the contract after this year. So you go and see if you can work through it. I mean, because you have to. And so, I mean, yeah, I think they might be better in the immediate, but now you're starting over and it's probably going to be DTR, I think. But I mean, he has the finger, so I would think it's
I was going to say
and then it's DTR maybe after that. I could see them being sellers at a couple of other spots. They moved Amari Cooper for a few reasons, I was told. The number was great considering what it was with his contract. He was not going to be part of their plans after this season. He was not playing up to what they thought he should be playing at in terms of status-wise. The chemistry with him and Deshaun Watson just wasn't very good. And the last one's the one that jumps out at me that I was told. We're being realistic with where we are in the season right now.
Yeah.
So that tells me I don't think they move on from guys like Myles Garrett. They'll get calls. They have.
Sure.
But like Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, JOK, like I don't think those guys are still relatively young and like still very, very good. But maybe like a Zadarius Smith is like a pass rusher that goes on the move to maybe a place like Detroit or something like that. I think they'll be judicious with it, but I think they are a little bit more in the seller category right now with where they're at. I think at the quarterback spot, it's you see where you're at this season. They're in line for a top 5 pick, and I don't see that potentially changing. And maybe the quarterback of the future for the Cleveland Browns is picked in the first 5 picks of this upcoming draft. I really do. I think Deshaun Watson might have. It's realistic to just put it out there that he's played his last down for the Browns.
I was just going to say, we saw the NFL record for largest dead cap hit taken by a team happen this past offseason with Russell Wilson. Are we?
You're like, we're number 1.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. The one time we're being number 1 just hurts a little bit more.
It's not great.
Do you think we have a realistic chance to be in store to have that record broken just one off season later? I think it'd be $73 million dead cap hit.
Yeah, I think it's like 140 something combined over the 2 years. I think you just have him on the roster. I mean, I think you just back up. It costs you the same amount roughly.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little bit more cap wise to cut him. If you keep him, you could push money one more year down the road, honestly, and try to lower the cap a little bit as the cap continues to increase in its total. And you just have him be the backup, or you just literally say the Achilles isn't right yet. And you have that go for the year. I mean, there was discussions of that, honestly, man, like this year of like, just say the shoulder's not right and throw him on IR for the rest of the year. It's not working. And so I would say you're essentially looking at it going, okay, we're paying our quarterback position, top tier quarterback position money, but we have a rookie out there and our backups eating the actual money of it. You know what I mean? And you don't get to take it. It's that's where it's similar to Denver. Like Denver doesn't get a chance this year and next year to take advantage of Bo Nix's rookie contract. They don't have that luxury. They're essentially paying the quarterback position in that upper tier. I would assume that's what Cleveland ends up doing.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It'll definitely be interesting, and it kind of changes the landscape of the top half of that draft in terms of what teams are looking for what and where they end up. There's been a lot of discourse this season about the rookie class at QB, and now we've been able to see Drake May play a couple of games. I thought he looked surprisingly.
He's probably like the best player on their team. Honestly,
I was going to say there was a lot of discourse I would see on social media and from Patriots fans and things like that of like Drake May gets to fly home, everybody else get on a boat. You know what I mean?
Row yourself home. Yeah.
To come back from London. So so now that we've been able to see, obviously we won't get to see anything from JJ McCarthy, which I thought was one of the more intriguing fits with Kevin O'Connell and how that might work out. Yeah. We have to push that to next season. But I wanted to do a little bit of a rookie report card kind of roundup through 7 weeks or so.
I like this. Okay.
Starting with number 1 at Caleb Williams. What grade would you give Caleb Williams, factoring in everything you need to factor with the team situation and the skill position players, their record, all of that? How has Caleb Williams done in your eyes so far this season?
I'd say, I mean, it's only gone in the right direction. So I'm going to give him like an A-, honestly. Like I don't understand fans who like everybody come out of the gate just like swinging at the NFL level. Like it's unbelievable. I know he's number 1 pick. I know he has talent. That I've talked to enough scouts that are like, this doesn't come along very often. You got to learn the game. And I think that last game that he played in London was a great example of the tight window throws he was able to do, manipulating guys with his eyes. Like he's figuring it out and he's playing well. I really wish Jaden Daniels plays this weekend. We'll see if it happens. Yeah. But I want to see the two of them go against each other. He's headed so in the right direction. And it seems like Now each week it's like growing by leaps and bounds. I don't know if that was a terrible snap. There we go.
Yeah.
I can't snap with my right hand. Isn't that weird? Like I can't snap at all. I broke this middle finger and I cannot snap at all, but I can snap with that one kind of. Not as bad. The first one was bad, but yeah, like he's headed in the right. I think by the end of the year, we're going to be like, this kid is playing. Like this kid's really playing.
I would give Caleb Williams, for whatever you can decide whether it's worth anything, a half a letter grade, a full letter grade. I give Caleb Williams a little bit of an extra boost. It's already enough pressure to come in as a number 1 overall pick, and not just a number 1 overall pick, but like a Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck number 1 overall pick, where we knew for several years when he was in college, this guy's going to be the number 1 overall pick when he comes out as a junior, as a senior, whatever it is. He's class proof when it comes to his competition in the draft class that year. So he's got that. But then going to an organization that has never really had a true franchise quarterback, never had a 4,000-yard passer, never had all those things. So to do all of that, and then you factor in all of the outside noise that he would get with the painting his fingernails, and he's not a leader, and he's doing this and he's doing that. All that stuff that was stacked against him in a tough fan base for a storied franchise, and he's weathered that storm pretty well.
He's handled it great. I think he really has. You're right. And it didn't start off great. He took a boatload of sacks. But I think he's starting to figure it out. I think he really is. And I this last game, to me, I was almost like, don't let these guys go on a bye. Like he's humming a little bit. And so, yeah, I think he's definitely headed in the right direction. It's starting to look like the guy that they took number 1 overall. And what happens, we'll go to number 2, right? What always makes it worse too, when you talk about his situation. When the guy picked right after you.
I was just going to go there because we witnessed a draft class not that long ago where the Carolina Panthers took Bryce Young number 1 overall, and the Houston Texans took CJ Stroud. And in not so distant hindsight, it feels like the Houston Texans stole the far and away number 1 overall quality quarterback in that draft.
Well,
and the Panthers are left reeling a little bit. I don't think that's at all how the Washington Commanders feel with Jaden Daniels. I think that if I'm in the Washington organization or a fan base or a member of that fan base, I feel like we got a number 1 overall pick in terms of talent thus far through the season. What have you thought of Jaden Daniels?
I give Jaden Daniels an A+. I think the situation is I don't want to say equally as difficult to walk into. But Washington has been an absolute dumpster fire of an organization for some time. In a giant market. Both of them are equal in that sense. They've failed at the rookie quarterback before in the past. I mean, RG3 wins Rookie of the Year, and it blows up in their face. And so there's a lot of skepticism about that position in Washington. And I would say as a team, there's more to fix probably than there is in Chicago. And Dan Quinn has done a brilliant job. And the Cliff Kingsbury, all indications pointed to talking to people around the league. This is a 1-year rental at the offensive coordinator spot. I don't think that's the case right now. Cliff is dialing it up, and they have Jaden Daniels, who is just special. I mean, he really is. Now, there's some concerns about the size. I did their game against Baltimore a couple of weeks ago. I was in Baltimore watching the game, and never gets rattled, always in control. So calm, never puts the ball in harm's way, never throws the ball, in tight windows where he doesn't have to. His legs are such an added bonus. I was told by somebody on their coaching staff, if he couldn't run, he'd still be the 2nd overall pick. That's how good of a pocket passer he is. And he probably has a little bit less to work with. I mean, Zach Ertz is not what he used to be.
Sure.
I think Terry McLaurin's an outstanding receiver that's probably very underrated. I think Austin Eckler catches the ball well out of the backfield, but he's not dealing with as much talent probably as Caleb Williams is. And to complete 83% of your passes or whatever it was through a 4-game stretch is unbelievable.
It sounds fake.
It sounds nuts. Well, Jared Goff just broke it over his last 4 games, which is nuts. I think
he couldn't even get the game ball.
And he didn't get a game ball. And maybe got one on Wednesday, coach said. But I think it was 81 and change. But I mean, the 3 traits I was told by a member of their offensive coaching staff was, let me see if I can get this right because this was a while ago. It was he plays with such anticipation, he plays with such poise, and he has unbelievable vision. And I think those 3 things are so important at the quarterback spot, and he has those in spades.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you, too, it's so many of the things that we scrutinize as analysts, as fans and things in the pre-draft process, because I was definitely a big fan of Jaden Daniels in college. His Heisman season was amazing. I remember watching him at Arizona State. Even before that. Big fan of his, and there was a lot of discourse, even though he was slotted to go pretty high. It wasn't like this guy's going to drop and tank, but there was all these concerns about he's too small. He's not going to be able to utilize his legs as well in the NFL as he is in college. And through this first 6-7 weeks of the NFL season, while some of that stuff may be semi-true, it has not impacted them at all. And I can't remember, outside of some brief flashes of Taylor Heineke going airborne in the end zone and Alex Smith making the most miraculous one-legged comeback I've ever seen in my life, I haven't felt like there's been as much buzz around Washington, who you alluded has been one of the most dysfunctional franchises in the NFL for a significant stretch of years. It hasn't felt like there's been buzz around that team in a long, long time.
No, not at all. Not like this. I mean, this is out of this world right now. I mean, you should see the way the people in their organization are acting. You should see just kind of the grin on their face. And I mean, they lost that game I was at, but he went toe to toe with Lamar Jackson, like till the end. And he really in their locker room talking to guys, like they just kind of ran out of time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was talking to Nick Allegretti, who played offensive line for the Chiefs with Mahomes, and he kind of told me, he's like, I try not to bring it up to him or publicly, because there's some traits that he has that are very similar to Pat's. It's from a leadership standpoint, from a hang out with everybody on the team type of standpoint. And I know that sounds to fans like it doesn't mean anything.
Sure.
That is a trait lacking in Aaron Rodgers, and it's evident.
Yep.
It's a trait that Pat has in spades, and it's evident. It was a superpower of Tom Brady's. There's just little things, little intangibles that Jaden Daniels has that some guys are just wowed by in that building.
It's a short sample size, obviously, because the Patriots didn't jump out right out of the gate with it. But in the couple of game sample size, one overseas, what have you seen from Drake May, and how do you think, if you had to maybe you can give a little bit of a projection forward grade for Drake May, since it's kind of a short observation window,
and talk about situation you're falling into. I mean, this is probably the worst group of skill guys that any first-round pick quarterback out of this group is playing with, and it might not be close. He had the most work needed in terms of, footwork, in terms of growth. Probably didn't play as much as Jaden Daniels played or Bo Nix played. And so he needed snaps. They were giving him like 30% of the first-team reps in practice over the last couple of weeks before he was named the starter. So this was like something that they were kind of working, because let's just be honest, for everybody at home, like that doesn't happen. Like that's not a normal thing to just give your backup quarterback like 30% of your reps in practice while you're trying to put your game plan together. But it just kept building, and and they started seeing it, and they started realizing it. And I think his mobility is coming into play with an offensive line that's just not very good and has been mismatched like crazy. I'll stand by. We'll go quicker on Drake May, because like, he was the best player on the field for them in London. And I think that's what you're hoping for if you want to be a Patriots fan with any sort of glimmer of hope right now.
Yeah, all of that to say, trying to become the franchise quarterback that takes the reins from the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yeah, and the previous one, Mac did all right, and then it exploded. So here goes another crack at it.
We'll have to skip over, like I said, JJ McCarthy. We'll wait and see. I'm very intrigued about that, and we'll finish with Bo Nix. It's been what seems like a roller coaster of emotions. It's been 10-9 ugly win over the Jets. It's been a blowout victory over the red hot at the time Buccaneers, and it's felt like, and we've talked about it over the handful of weeks. It's felt like a little bit of that Pittsburgh Steelers, Kansas City Chiefs, like just do what we got to do to eke out a win and grit it out. Overall, through this sample size, what are your impressions of and your rookie report card grade for Bo Nix?
Say a B-.
That's about where I'm at. I'm a C. Feels harsh because he's dealing with a lot of stuff too. But yeah, I wouldn't go higher than B-.
Like I mentioned, you look at the skill guys that some of these other guys are playing with. There's no true number one.
Sure.
On this team, I think Cortland Sutton deserves more balls for sure.
Yeah.
I think
10 touchdowns last year.
Yeah, I think he's a great 50-50 guy. I think he's great in the red zone. But I mean, we could be entirely honest. Like, there's not a Terry McLaurin on this team. There's not a DJ Moore on this team, or Keenan
There's
Allen,
no Cole Kmet.
Cole Kmet, or I mean, like Roma Dunze. Like, it's.
I'd take a Hunter Henry, to be honest with you.
Probably, and so I think what we're seeing with Bo Nix is a typical rookie season, honestly, and that's not a bad thing. I think we're seeing some things that we're learning about him. I think. And I think Sean said this on Monday to the media, like, he is faster than I think everybody assumed. He is more athletic than a lot of people thought. He is eliminating negative plays, which is enormous for an offense that can't get down the field. With an offense that has no explosive plays and is among the worst in the NFL in terms of like yards per attempt and in all those metrics in terms of explosive plays, like, you can't take negative plays. he's almost single-handedly eliminating those negative plays with he's only taken 9 sacks. He's gotten out of trouble so many times with his legs. I think that's a great bonus that they need to lean into a little bit more. I think he's developing in the pocket. I think there are moments where people go, I mean, on that Thursday night game, you're like, there are wide open receivers that are getting missed. I mean, wide open receivers that are getting missed. And Kirk Herbstreit talked about it a lot in the broadcast, right? I mean, the footwork's not entirely there. I would say this in a positive frame. We're not seeing him fading away as much as we did in the beginning of the season. A lot of it was like, he's fading back off the back foot. That's not happening as often. He's seeing it. That's I mean, he knows where he's supposed to be going with the ball. All right, let's clean up some of these things.
Yep.
I said this to Zach and Phil on Monday. I was like, if the issue that we're all having right now that he needs to clean up is one of the things that we thought was a strength, and that's the accuracy and that's the ability in the throw the ball in these tight windows and stuff, that makes me kind of excited because I think his brain's this is just an opinion, this part. His brain's seeing it. He sees it fast. Oh, man, it's open. I now see it. The game's slowing down. And then the footwork's not entirely there. If what we need, to start cleaning up over the next couple of weeks is something that he's actually been decent at in the past, and it's almost like a readjustment, that gives me a little bit of confidence. I don't know about you.
I agree. No, I agree. I think that you have to learn it and know it before you can truly consistently do it. And so, to your point, if he's mentally, if the game is slowing down for him, if he's able to grasp the concepts of the offense and see the field and read the defenses at the NFL level at a sharper rate, it's easier to clean up the happy feet footwork and some of the mechanics and the throwing and the timing than it is to like sit down and really tutor the mental side of it, because there's 100%. So much more that goes into that. So
because if you can't see it, you can't see it.
Exactly.
Like, and that usually, sometimes that changes, but that usually doesn't change as drastically. And you're right. He has the physical capabilities to correct some of these things pretty quickly. I mean, the fading away part, all right, that was a couple weeks. All right. It's probably because he's under pressure. It's so I think he's learning the way you should be learning. And I think they're learning him. And I think they're learning him and what they can call. And I think that's going to change the way they kind of run this offense, honestly, moving forward a little bit, trying to find those little tweaks.
I want to zoom out with my couple quick things for you here at the end. I want to zoom out to the AFC picture as a whole. So I'm going to put up the AFC standings right here. There's a lot of there's a clear team at the top, and then there's a second tier, and it really gets kind of log jammed in there toward the back end of the current playoff picture standing. You got the Broncos sitting right there at the end, the Chargers right there on the bubble, and then some teams down below who have seemed like they've started to pick up a little life. Who, based on this landscape, do you see being the potential biggest riser up the standings and a team that has the potential to have the biggest free fall from where they're currently at?
Oof. You took it away. Now I can't see it. I would say Indianapolis is probably going to be more of a free fall. That's a top 5 pick right there. They're trying to figure out a quarterback right now in Anthony Richardson. I would say that's more of a free fall. I could see the Bengals going on a run, man. I don't know.
I could too.
I mean, did you know, like, what Joe Burrow did through the first 6 weeks in terms of passer rating, in terms of completion percent? I mean, like, he had like over 110 passer rating, over a 70% completion percentage. Nobody has ever done that at the quarterback spot through 6 games and had a losing record ever in the history of the league. Like, he's just playing too well. I think Lou Anarumo is too good of a coach. They kind of changed things on defense. I can see them rising. I don't think anybody below them, 10 through 16, I don't see anybody climbing a bunch out of that group. I really don't. And if I had to pick a team and they're desperate, I would maybe say Jacksonville. That would maybe be the one. I could see Pittsburgh coming back to earth a little bit because the second half of their schedule is brutal. Brutal. So that 5-6, I could see dropping some. I think Baltimore's the best team in the AFC. I think Kansas City just knows how to win. They're remarkable. Their players buy into whatever this coaching staff asks them to do. They're a physical run the football team right now. I mean, that's what they are. So I could see some shuffling at the top 3, but I think the top 4 are essentially what they are. I think the top 4 are all Super Bowl contenders, honestly. And then so I like Denver sitting there at 7. I look at the rest of the Broncos schedule. I think they have the ability to win 9 games.
I agree.
You want to go through it before we leave?
Yeah, we can. I think that I think that it's totally reasonable to think that they can beat up on kind of an in transition influx Carolina team. I don't think it's
I think they lose the next 3.
You do? Okay.
I think they lose Ravens, Chiefs, Falcons.
I agree. I think you're definitely okay to lose Ravens and Chiefs because, like you said, 2 of the premier teams in the conference. Mm-hmm. And I think the Falcons game could be a game where maybe you catch them on an off day because
I think that's what you're going to need to do. You're right.
Yep. I'm the biggest Kirk Cousins fan there is, but even I can admit that they can be a little bit of a roller coaster at times. And
but they can also,
yeah, he has the ability to throw for 500 yards on Matt Ryan night, and he also has the ability to lay the biggest egg in prime time, that you've ever seen. So I think that's a coin flip game that you really got to try to win. And then, you got on the back end of that, you got Indianapolis, who I think, as you said, is a team that's kind of in flux, in transition, and could dive. You've got some divisional games coming up. You already lost to the Chargers, but that's historically a team I think you've split with pretty confidently. And so I think it's fair to say, even going on the road to do so, that you could get, you could get a get back game there. Las Vegas, I think, has been a team that you just broke the streak with. But again, I think that that's a team that is beatable, even if you end up with a split there. And you've got Kansas City there on the back end, Cleveland, who we'll see who's playing at quarterback. So I think there is a path. If you just beat the teams that you're realistically supposed to beat, I think that there's a path to 8 or even 9 wins. 10 seems a little rough. You got to win.
10 seems too much. And I think that's a sign of a massive step this young team takes, right? This is a young team. You still got a boatload of dead cap money that you're dealing with Russell Wilson's situation. And you're trying to, you're not playing on the same playing field as everybody else. You've lost 6 first and second round draft picks between 2022 and 2024. Like you're playing with one hand behind your back in a sense. Mm-hmm. But what I think we're learning is if they go off and they beat this Panthers team pretty handily, like they should, you're starting to get a sense going, okay, this is a team that wins the games it's supposed to win.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big step in the right direction for this team this year. Like, I think they lose those next 3. And I think they beat the Raiders. I think they beat the Browns. I think they beat the Colts. So I could see them, losing next week, winning this week, then losing 3, then winning 3. And then that takes you into Chargers, Bengals, Chiefs, which is really going to see what your team is about.
Yep.
But also that last game against the Chiefs at home, you may not see a lot of starters.
Could be.
That may be a win if Kansas City's in a position to where their fate does not change. And they've done it before.
And I was going to say, that's been the MO for the Chiefs, is that last game, that last divisional game, which has been the Chiefs several times in the last handful of years.
It has.
It's, you're facing the backups, or you're definitely not getting their A squad. And I kind of felt like at the start of the season when they were 3-0, 4-0, I'm like, man, this is a team that's just begging for a loss, and they're eking out some ugly wins. And eventually the pendulum's going to swing the other way. And it might. But it's less likely now because they've done it for 6 straight weeks.
Yeah.
And
I still think they'll lose some.
Yeah, of course. And I agree with you. What you said about the Bengals, that was my biggest team to rise up to, because I looked at them and the Ravens when they were 1-3, 1-4, 2-4. I'm like, that might be the Bengals sitting at 1-4 or 2-4 might be one of the most dangerous 1-4 teams I could ever met, because Patrick Mahomes is my ultimate. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care if they have no wide receivers and they're throwing and the equipment manager's running the ball. I'm not a bet against Patrick Mahomes guy ever. Joe Burrow is just under that for me. When you got a guy that can throw for 370 yards and 5 touchdowns on any given Sunday, no matter what else is going on, I think you got a chance to win any game that you're in.
Joe's outstanding. It's funny. We mentioned both those guys, and I take them 8 days a week, but Lamar's probably the MVP of the team of the league right now. But the guy that I would say is closest to Lamar in terms of MVP, I think it's Jared Goff.
He's unbelievable.
I think Jared Goff has been.
We have it's such a rare thing to see like a genuine, bona fide win-win NFL trade.
Remember that was a roster dump. That was a salary dump. The Rams are like, we need you to eat all this salary. And the Lions were like, cool. Because Dan Campbell didn't have any relationship with Jared Goff.
No.
He didn't even know him. And so that has worked out. You're right. Like
the Rams were in a closing Super Bowl window, and it clearly wasn't working with McVay, who's one of the brightest offensive minds in the game. And Jared Goff, they went to a Super Bowl and lost to Tom Brady, but it wasn't there.
Worst Super Bowl ever.
I was
there. It was awful.
But they go, and they're like the 7-9 Buccaneers who pick up Tom Brady and make a run. And the Lions have found a new franchise guy. And again, because we've talked about the identity and the team mentality behind the Lions, the us against the world of this and that. And in hindsight, I didn't see it in the moment, but Jared Goff has become the perfect quarterback to embody that identity. Yeah. Got cast aside from one of the biggest cities in the country in LA, and it didn't work, and nobody believed in him, and he was this, and now they've rallied together, and Dan Campbell's been able to unlock that in him, and he's playing unbelievable. I certainly didn't see it coming, but after last season, I could see him as an MVP. I could see the Lions in the Super Bowl, which they had a great shot to be even just last season.
Yeah, they're insane. Here's my one MVP stat. I'll throw this out there. There's been 3 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL that have had 3 straight games of over 140 quarterback rating, and I want to say over a 70% completion percentage. Aaron Rodgers in 2011, Kurt Warner in 1999, and Roger Staubach in 1971. Rodgers and Warner won the MVP that year. Staubach finished second, had to settle for MVP of the Super Bowl. This is what he got. And the other guy who's done it is Jared Goff now over these last 3.
Wow.
He's been unbelievable. He has been outstanding. And I want to take away, I know how this turned into a Lions show all of a sudden, but I do want to take away what he did this past week, because everybody's going to say look at the weapons he has around. Of course. He has the best offensive line in football. He went toe-to-toe mentally in the chess game with Brian Flores, who has confused every single quarterback this entire season. And he won over Brian Flores in terms of what he did at the line of scrimmage, checking in and out of things, moving things around. He has been super fun to watch. It's great because this league doesn't love second chances. And the minute you're cast off in the NFL, usually you don't get another go. And I love when they succeed and they work out.
I couldn't agree with you more. And yes, people, you can have the embarrassment of Rich's argument, but we've seen the Miami Dolphins who have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and kind of a rotation of comparable guys at running back. So you can have Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta and Sonic and Knuckles, running the ball. But if you don't have somebody to distribute it, it's not worth a whole lot.
Yeah. Shouldn't it be working in New York right now? I mean, Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, Devontae Adams, Breece Hall,
I'm not giving up on the Jets yet. We're one more Rodgers buddy away. Randall Cobb enters the equation. Is
David
Jermichael Finley?
Bakhtiari's coming back to play on that offensive line. I don't know, man. I don't.
Can Jermichael Finley still place him up?
I think what we're seeing honestly is like Brady did it, and everybody thinks everybody can do it. And I was there in Tampa for a lot of that that first year, and it was rare what they were able to accomplish down there as a group. And I think what the difference is, they already had a really good infrastructure of a team there already. Brought a couple buddies, but a lot of homegrown guys, Vita Vea, Antoine Winfield Jr., Tristan Wirfs, Levante David, all those guys were already there. But yeah, I don't know. Something's not right, and I don't see it working. Honestly, I don't, because they've already pulled every lever you can. You got rid of the head coach, you changed play callers, you made the big trade. Like, what other lever are you going to pull to regroup this group?
Yeah, the glass has been broken in case of emergency a couple of times, and
they're smashing the broken glass on the ground with a hammer over and over again.
Well, James, you are a no one's more plugged into the NFL than you, but you're a Five-Tool Sports insider and you're a Five-Tool Sports fan. So I know you're a big baseball guy too. I've seen you at a couple of things. Talk to me about where is your. I know the Phillies couldn't get it done for you, but in terms of a World Series matchup, this one's got a lot of meat on the bone. Where's your interest level in the World Series this year, despite the markets that might be in it and how you might feel about them as a Phillies fan?
Yeah. I hate the Mets. I hate them. And I was so happy to see that season come to a close. Growing up in Philly, we are definitely like the ugly stepchild of New York City. There's just a chip on your shoulder all the time. I think, in my opinion, I'll be watching, obviously. Our season came to I'll be honest, a predictable end with the Philadelphia Phillies. But I don't think there's been a more impactful, influential professional athlete in this country that rivals Ohtani. Like, I really don't. It's unreal. I went to all the Dodgers games I could here just to see him in person. Like, I don't do that for like most stars in the in professional sports. It's unbelievable. Like it's like must see television. It's unreal. So my show 89 that I host with my good buddy Steve Smith. Steve is a diehard Dodgers fan. Rocks it pretty much every show we host. He has some sort of Dodgers hat on or something. It's excruciating, but now I'm going to pull for the Dodgers. I will be pulling for them.
As will I. And that's somewhat sacrilege as someone who grew up a Rockies fan and in this town. Yeah. So I'm sure the comment section's about to light me up for it.
Exactly. No, and I battled them too. A National League guy, like Phillies, Dodgers has always been a big, like, who's going to come out and represent the NL out of, World Series, type of thing, and huge postseason battles over the last couple 2 decades, maybe. No, I still got to go Dodgers.
Somebody who I don't remember the actor who said there. I believe it was an actor who said it a long time ago. It was a prominent quote that said, "Rooting for the Yankees is like going to Vegas and rooting for the house to win." and I've always loved that. And I have a ton of family from out in New York, and they're all going crazy. I don't have an affinity for the Yankees, but I do have an affinity. If my team's not in it, regardless of sport, I want to see the best players play and the best teams play. Shohei Ohtani is the best player in baseball, and he's one of the best athletes in the world. And it's undisputable. And I think of guys like Mike Trout, who were the best players in baseball and the best player in his sport for years and years and years and never sniffed a playoff game, let alone a championship. And Shohei Ohtani going to the Dodgers, having a chance to do that, playing on the biggest stage, and then all of the storylines behind it. Aaron Judge on the other end, one of the best hitters of a generation and the best hitters in the game. First time in World Series history, you have 2 50 home run hitters squaring off against each other. You've got the Juan Soto, Giancarlo Stanton, Mookie Betts, Freddie. I mean, you could fill
big moment guys, man.
List. Yeah.
I think that's always the thing that you want to see in baseball, because no sport is like baseball where it's the lull before the explosion. And you have a lot of guys in this series that love that moment. And are thrive in it, and I think that's great for the sport. This is gonna be I think Jeff Passan said this, and I think it was perfect. Like, because I am a big baseball guy. Like, I think this is gonna be our opportunity to see how popular baseball is in America.
If you don't want to watch this, nothing. Like I would consider myself, and part of that's just being beaten down by the 20th and Blake grinder for year after year after year. Which, by the way, can't wait to dig into. At some point, the fact that they're going to be lowering their spending. The Rockies are going to lower their payroll after losing 100 games for a second consecutive season. Awesome. So that's going to be great. But I think a lot of like people like me who have been kind of ground down into casual baseball fans, I'm going to watch every single game that it goes in this series. I'm going to be locked in, because this is the, if you could draw it up in a computer, heavyweight fight that baseball could provide. And I agree with you. If you're not into this, you're just not into it. And that's okay.
Yeah, but they're going to find that barometer now. Like, we're going to find, that's the point. Like, we're going to find really how interested America is still in baseball.
I can't wait to see. I think it was in the NLCS where the Dodgers scored a record 46 runs, I think, over the course of that time. I believe it averaged out to like 10% of the Japanese population watched that series. So I can't wait to see what the combined total number is between the Great Pumpkin, between the international viewers and the United States viewers. I think this is just going to be a fantastic spectacle to watch. So James, as we've done every single time, we're way over time. I won't take up any more of your busy day. Thank you so much for stopping in with me and chatting. Can't wait to do it again next week.
Oh, is it you next week? I've hit this button, and I don't know whose face I'm going to see each and every week.
You know what?
It's going to be you.
Rachel is supposed to be back next week, so it's not going to be me. But I might just come crash the party because I put it out in the universe there. So I might just pop in.
Okay.
So,
perfect.
anyways, thank you so much, James. Always great to talk to you, and we'll catch up again soon.
Sounds good, buddy.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and get back to work.
Yeah.